I want to offer something of a corrective to certain things that one hears about the Frankfurt School in general and their leading thinker, Theodore Adorno, in particular. For a while, the idea of cultural Marxism was bandied about as perhaps the key way to explain what those on the right, so to speak, saw as the kind of driving force behind everything that's going wrong with the world, as they would see it. Usually described in rather vague terms as Marx's apparent drive for economic equality being pushed into more kind of non-economic realms of culture, with dire consequences for all involved. But what's sort of fascinating to me is that although some of the Frankfurt School members or associates, for it was really something of a loose group, although some of them did voice things which sound something like the kind of anti-traditional values kind of narrative of what the Frankfurt School were about, there is an interesting strand of things that particularly Adorno said, which actually sound quite conservative in certain ways. So someone like Wilhelm Reich, who did want a kind of society of free love, so to speak, or Marcuse, who looked to a society like that, are really not the whole story of the Frankfurt School by any means. They weren't a monolithic block. Even Marcuse, in his analysis of how a capitalist society can use a culture of promiscuity, actually, that could be turned to a conservative use if one so desired. But with Adorno, there's even more to draw on in this regard. So, although he was behind the authoritarian personality, a supposedly data-driven book about how particularly the family was the shaper of modern authoritarianism and so on. Although he was part of that, he also voiced some very interesting things in his well-known book Minima Moralia, which is a kind of collection of interesting fragments, bits and pieces, his reflections on the terrible state of the capitalist economy. And the bits I'm going to read, while they really don't mark him out as a capital C conservative by any means, and they have his dialectical ambiguity about the family, I think it offers an important angle, which clearly shows he wasn't all about destroying the West, destroying Western values and traditional values, and that kind of thing, which you hear so often. So I'll just read them because I think they speak for themselves. The first extract is from the second fragment of the first part. One realizes with horror that earlier, opposing one's parents because they represented the world, one was often secretly the mouthpiece against a bad world of one even worse. Unpolitical attempts to break out of the bourgeois family usually lead only to deeper entanglement in it, and it sometimes seems as if the fatal germ cell of society, the family, were at the same time the nurturing germ cell of uncompromising pursuit of another. With the family there passes away, while the system lasts, not only the most effective agency of the bourgeoisie, but also the resistance which, though repressing the individual, also strengthened, perhaps even produced him. The end of the family paralyzes the forces of opposition. The rising collectivist order is a mockery of a classless one. Together with the bourgeois, it liquidates the utopia that once drew sustenance from motherly love. So I think that speaks for itself in many senses. And the 11th fragment from the same part on divorce. I won't read the whole thing, but I think this sentence is particularly interesting. If marriage offers one of the last possibilities of forming human cells within universal inhumanity, the universal takes revenge in the breakdown of marriage, laying hands on what had seemed accepted from the rule, subjugating it to the alienated orders of rights and property, and deriding those who had lived in delusive security. Just what was most protected is cruelly requisitioned and exposed.